It is a thing of joy when you get the fitting of the outfit you're trying to make in one try. And when I got this tulip skirt, the very first time I was making the mock-up, I was very, very excited because I got my measurements correct. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Ada and I love to make things. This video is going to be about the tulip skirt of the Virgo dress that I made. So let's get into the details on how I made the tulip skirt. For the pattern, what you're doing is to simply duplicate an already skirt block that you have. So you draft out the separate skirt pattern, normal pencil skirt pattern, and then take that front block and duplicate it in two. So what I did was I took two new pattern paper and placed that on fold. Since I want to replicate the same shape and same length, I simply placed the pattern paper on top of each other and place it on fold. Then the next thing you just want to do is place on or pin on your ready skirt block and then cut it out. Then the next thing you're going to do is to replicate or mark out those key points on your skirt, like the dart, the hip line, the knee line, and you just want to replicate that so that it is on the same side as your new patterns that you've cut out. As you can see here, I'm trying to show you with my tracing wheel the marks that I already made, the dart marks, the hip marks and everything. And since that is done, to make it easier for me to draw them out again with a pen, just to highlight where the darts are and everything is. Some people like their slits on their knees, some like it underneath their knees. Me, I just want my slits to fall on the 19 inch level from my waist. So what you're going to do is mark out where you want your slits to be and then roll out that line. For my skirt, I also wanted my slit to start just before the dart, that is the layering of my skirt, and I just felt it gave that very nice look. So what I did was I measured out 2 inches from the side of my skirt on both sides. So the top layer had 2 inches from the right and the bottom 2 inches from the left. And I also marked out where I want, how wide my slit is going to be, which is 5 inches. So determine those parameters on your own, whatever you want, and just mark them appropriately. Another thing is that my skirt pattern here doesn't have the sewing allowance. I added my sewing allowance when I was cutting out my pattern. So here I am, I've already marked it out with a marker how I wanted my curve to be like, and we are just going to duplicate the same thing for the bottom petal. I like to call them petal, I mean the tulip skirt, the flower. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm also taking out 2 inches for the left petal. My right petal was 2 inches from the waist, and it is exactly the very same thing. And I ruled out the curve for the bottom panel. So when I marked it out, I just placed the top petal on the bottom petal to just see how exactly the petals are going to turn out, and then I cut them all out. Now, after my pattern is done, the next thing is to draft or to make a mock-up. Please make a mock-up, I beg. Don't go and butcher your materials. Make sure you make a mock-up to see how your pattern will look like and to determine how you are even going to sew your skirts together, what steps to take. And when that was done, it looked so nice. At this point I was just happy. I was like, the first time I'm making this and it's turning out so nice. I was just feeling myself here. The slit was slitting, the tulip, look at it, it's giving tulip flower. I mean, can you see the resemblance? So I was just really excited. The only thing I had was that the petal, I was just trying to check out the sit test. Are my legs open when I sit down? And I just figured I would pin it down whenever I want to make the main one. And that was it. Now that my mock-up is done, let us get into the materials for the skirt. The materials I used was very simple. You just need your fabric, the interfacing, and you need the bling. That's all. Your fabric, lining, interfacing, and the decorative elements. I used paper stone and individual stones, and of course I used braided trimming. And that's it. So let's get into sewing and my sewing tips for you. So the very first tip I'll give you is to structurize or add structure to your panels with an interfacing. And after that was done, I marked out and made notches where my darts were supposed to go. Now this was because I included darts in my skirt, and a tip I would give you also is to not include the darts in your skirt, because you are layering about 4 different types of fabrics on top of each other. It will be easier for you to not include the darts, but if you included the darts, my next tip for you is to make sure you iron your darts flat, because if you don't iron them flat, you're going to have bulk seams. And that's all. Make sure you iron your seams flat or your darts flat if you included darts, or if you want to avoid the hassle, just don't include the darts when you're cutting out your skirt. So my skirts are sewn together. Make sure you top stitch basic things. The next tip I'm going to give to you is to make notches at where you want your layers to be on. Just like I'm showing you right now, not only did I notch where my darts were going to stay, I also notched where I want each layer of each petal of my skirt to start from. So even though I'm layering the top on top of each other, I made sure to have that notch where I wanted each petal to stop. And as you can see, once I placed the edge of the petal on top of the other, that is my 2-inch mark that I made initially. It's just lined up perfectly, and I pinned everything in place and made sure to sew the top edge together. Sew them together so that they don't move, and you're going to have yourself a perfect skirt, or the perfect front part of your tulip skirt. And that was that about the whole skirt. Even though right here my thread finished, I had to retread. But those are just the very, very simple sewing tips I'm going to give you. For a tulip skirt, I would say, you know that the skirt is a kind of wrap skirt in the front, so you don't necessarily need a slit at the back of your skirt. The slit already is at the front, so it just means that the back of the skirt is going to be completely closed. And as you can see, my tulip skirt is looking nice. The next thing I did was to attach the stones for this particular dress. Of course, iron your seams out flat. As you can see, the back of my skirt is completely closed, and I just attached the stones right on. After the stones were attached, I also attached the trimmings, and this was how the dress turned out. I also would do a separate video on the structural attachment, but this was how the skirt looked. I loved it. It was beautiful. It was amazing. I loved how the petals was, and it was just so nice. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, follow, like, whatever you want to do it, and also follow me on Instagram if you just want to catch up with me and ask me more questions, or just simply connect with me. So I'll see you guys in the next one, right? Let's see in the next one about the structural attachment and also the two faced turban as well. Bye.